now, I would like to bring up the Vice President of the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, and he happens to have a big brother by the name of George. Let's bring up Roy Foreman.
It's definitely a pleasure to be here because I've been part of boxing in Atlantic City for a number of years, television, managing my brothers, of course, and with Ray and Rod. It's just been an exciting venture the last 2 years for them to come and put this whole thing together. And without the fighters, nobody would be here. And that's why I'm kind of glad to have this opportunity to introduce who I think is one of the greatest warriors ever in the sport of boxing. One of them, because there was a lot of them, and that's Matthew Saad Muhammad. But the gentleman that's going to tell you about Matthew, because he can tell you even more, is a dear friend of mine. Mustafa and I have been together for like the last 30-something odd years, along with everybody else that's up on the stage. But he was Matthew's manager, confident, and perhaps confident to one of the greatest fighters ever, name-wise, athletic-wise in the sport of boxing. And I told him the other day, it's one person you can think of that had two names that everybody knew he was talking about. One was Ali, and the other was the greatest. So I'm just proud to introduce my friend, who I've known for 30-some odd years, Mustafa Amin.
All right.
Good evening. What an honor. Before I get started, many of you that know the life of Matthew Saad Muhammad know that he was an orphan. He was abandoned as a 4-year-old, found on the Ben Franklin Parkway in Philadelphia by Catholic nuns. He could not pronounce his name. I think he was shell-shocked from knowing that he heard his aunt tell his brother to leave him that day. They had too many children, and when the Catholic nuns found him, he couldn't even pronounce his name. And they decided to give him a name, and they named him Matthew. And they had to give him a last name. He was found on the Ben Franklin Parkway. They gave him the name of Matthew Franklin. And as we know, he became a world champion. He became famous. And he kept a burning desire to find out who he really was. So after he became champion, his story as a great champion became public. And we began to talk about the fact that we didn't know who he was. And long story short, Matthew offered a $10,000 reward for anyone that could provide him information to his true identity. Well, long story short, we can go on. I think there should be movies made about it. But long story short, a woman came forward in Philadelphia. We had an attorney who was able to authenticate her claim, and matter of fact, she said some buzzwords that Matthew remembered as a 4-year-old, and we actually found out who he was. By that time, we got national attention. Good Morning America televised a grand reunion of him meeting his siblings, and it was just unbelievable. And everyone else knows he adopted the Islamic faith and became Matthew Saad Muhammad. But we found out that his real name was Antonio Loach. So all of the fighters know what I'm talking about, and the managers. Training camps are pretty brutal. You're here for 6-8 weeks, and you gotta find something to laugh about. So of course, we started calling him Antonio. and he hated it, you know, Antonio Loach. And, it was like an Italian name or something, you know? But anyway, before I continue the story, I can't go much further. Matthew was adopted by a Portuguese immigrant, Mr. John and Catherine Santos, and we can't say enough about them. But he was raised in a household with Joe Johnson. Joe, would you stand up? This is Matthew's adopted brother. He knew Matthew as a kid. He was an older brother. And I can honestly tell you about Joe. Joe was his brother as a kid, prior to boxing, during boxing, and throughout the rest of Matthew's life. He was a friend, a brother, and a confidant. So let's give Joe a round of applause. I've had the good fortune of actually working with fighters in the world. And we won't talk about the other fighter, but I have to mention his name. But thanks to Matthew Saad Muhammad, after I left Matthew, I just couldn't, Mr. Dwight Kwawi is here, and after the second Kwawi fight, I personally thought that, Matthew should probably begin to do some other things. So we separated, but my luck got even better. Post-retirement, I was asked to travel with the greatest, Muhammad Ali. And thanks to my relationship with Matthew, I think that Muhammad Ali and Lonnie, they trusted me very much. I traveled the world, I saw things and heard things that I just couldn't dream of as a kid. So I actually worked for two fighters, and people always wonder, well, what does Mustafa do, or who is he? And I really don't have a long history in the fight business except for Matthew Saad Muhammad and Muhammad Ali. But let's get back to Matthew. I can guarantee you, as I look out, I see a lot of happy people here, especially with the inductees and the honorees. I can honestly tell you, and the people that know Matthew, he would have the biggest smile today, everyone in the room. He would be so excited. I mean, he had a 1,000-watt, megawatt smile. And he would be the happiest person in the room. I don't want to take up any more time. We got a lot of greats here, and I've got a million Matthew Saad Muhammad stories, so if anyone wants to approach me at any point, we can talk about it, but I want to be kind to the honorees. I'm going to give up the microphone. Thank you very much.